Good afternoon. So I'm just going to start and read direct from a report here that's been made in, I think it was The Guardian. I'm going to just read the actual detail of it because it talks about essential news that we should all know about and what most of everybody is denying and not listening to. Right, so I'll start right here and say, the global food system is the biggest driver of destruction of the natural world, and a shift to a predominantly plant-based diet is crucial in halting the damage, according to a report. Agriculture is the main threat to 86% of the 28,000 species known to be at risk of extinction. The report by the Chatham House think tank said, without change, the loss of biodiversity will continue to accelerate and threaten the world's ability to sustain humanity, it said. The root cause is a vicious circle of cheap food, the report said, where low costs drive bigger demand for food and more waste, and with more competition then driving costs even lower through more clearing of natural land and use of polluting fertilizers and pesticides. The report, supported by the UN Environment Programme, the UNEP, focused on three solutions. First is a shift to a plant-based diet because cattle, sheep and other livestock have the biggest impact on the environment. More than 80% of global farmland is used to raise animals, which provide only 18% of the calories eaten. Reversing the rising trend of meat consumption removes the pressure to clear new land and further damage wildlife. It also frees up existing land for the second solution, restoring native ecosystems to increase biodiversity. The availability of land also underpins the third solution, the report said, which is farming in a less intensive and damaging way, but accepting lower yields. Organic yields are on average about 75% of those of the conventional intensive farming, it said. Fixing the global food system would also tackle the climate crisis, the report said. The food system causes about 30% of all greenhouse gases emissions, with more than half coming from animals. Changes to food production could also tackle the ill health suffered by 3 billion people who either have too little to eat or are overweight and obese, and which cost trillions of dollars a year in healthcare. Politicians are still saying, my job is to make food cheaper for you, no matter how toxic it is from a planetary or human health perspective, said Tim Benton of Chatham House. We must stop arguing that we have to subsidize the food system in the name of the poor and instead deal with the poor by bringing them out of poverty. Benton said the impact of the food system on climate and health was becoming widely accepted, but that biodiversity was too often seen as a nice to have. Susan Gardner, director of UNEP's Ecosystems Division, said the current food system was a double-edged sword, providing cheap food but failing to take into account the costs to our health and to the natural world. Reforming the way we produce and consume food is an urgent priority, that she says. Jane Goodall, the renowned conservationist, said the intensive farming of billions of animals seriously damaged the environment and inhumane crowded conditions risks new pandemic diseases crossing into people. It should be phased out as soon as possible. A landmark review by Professor Sir Partha Dasgupta concluded the world was being put at extreme risk by the failure of economics to take account of the rapid depletion of biodiversity. The Chatham House report said that the world had lost half its natural ecosystems, and that the average population size of wild animals had fallen by 68% since 1970. In contrast, farmed animals, mainly cows and pigs, now account for 60% of all mammals by weight, with humans making up 36% and animals just 4%. That's wild animals. In reforming the global food system, the convergence of a global food consumption around predominantly plant-based diets is the most crucial element. The report said, for example, it said, a switch from beef to beans by the US population alone would free up yields equivalent to 42% of the US cropland for other uses such as rewilding or more nature-friendly farming. In another example, the report said, if the permanent pasture around the world that was once forest was returned to its native state, it would store 72 billion tons of carbon, roughly equivalent to 7 years of global emissions from fossil fuels. Benton said the report was not advocating that all people should become vegan, but should follow healthy diets that are a result of much lower intake of meat. The year ahead offers a potentially unique opportunity to redesign the global food system, Benton said, with major UN summits on biodiversity and climate, as well as the world's first UN Food Systems Summit and an International Nutrition for Growth Summit. The large sums being spent by governments as nations recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic also provide opportunities for policymakers that affords equal priority to public and planetary health, the report said. Philip Limbry at Compassion in World Farming said the future of farming must be by nature friendly and regenerative, and our diets must become more plant-based, healthier and sustainable. Without ending at factory farming, we are in danger of having no future at all. Now, it's all very well said, very well put, but the last parts of that report also argue for an acceptance to continue eating animals. Now, this should not even be an option at all. There should not be an option to carry on eating animals at all. And indeed, if a majority of people do stop eating animals, there should be an imperative then to bring in laws that would make consuming animals illegal. And this should happen. Most definitely this should happen. Every individual life that goes through farming is not something that humanity should be allowing to happen. We all, at least even the people who still continue to eat animals, know deep down that the killing of them, the harm done to them, is not morally acceptable. We all know that just by seeing each other alone, we understand the feeling that we feel, how we feel. Every individual animal has those basic feelings, the feelings of how you touch them. You know, any animal, you go to any animal, you try touching them, you touch them, and they will react very much in the same way as a human would react. It's the senses. Any time that you decide that you're going to consume animals, you are going to be condoning the pain the suffering, the mental anguish, the mental torment of what is the animal farming industry. It must end, and it must end soon. And we should all be talking out about it at every point that we possibly can, because it is being ignored. It must not be ignored. Speak out. Do more. There are lots of groups, lots of vegan groups around the country, all over the country. Just look up for your local vegan online group, because of almost every town and every city and most towns have a vegan group that discuss many different topics. But the basics must always, no matter what the different sort of frivolous stuff all around the issue of animal farming causes, the majority of that is excuses to not stop eating animals. It must end. That's long enough. Let's have you listen to this. Please listen to it. Comment if you like, but listen and maybe share if you like.